Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. So good to have you with us today. We are, of course, broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios, and we're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking to a mayor in the state of Minnesota who has been able to see their city taxes not increased over the last 2 years, 0% over the last 2 years. And if I understand this, next year, the residents are going to see just over an 18% decrease in their taxes.
Well, you don't hear that story very
often. Those
often.
folks have got to be pretty happy about that. But what we're talking about is an unhappy story, what a lot of people are unhappy about, and that is in Wisconsin, just as there has been here in Minnesota and everywhere else, because of the real estate bubble and overdevelopment a little bit too quickly of homeowner associations. The market just wasn't there. There was the supply, but not the demand. And so you have a lot of developers who are going under. And so homeowner associations are caught, and homeowners living in these associations with problems with things that just haven't been finished. And like you pointed out, Tony, this wasn't anything nefarious on the part of a developer.
Not necessarily. I don't know this developer, but it wasn't necessarily. Yeah. But the thing we might want to explain to listeners, too, is the reason that condominium associations and townhome associations are different, say, from having a problem with your builder of your single-family home, is that you bought into a community that's supposed to be supported by every home in that community. Mm-hmm. And if only 20% of the homes have been sold and the developer goes under and has to give it up, that means those 20% homeowners have to support the entire community somehow.
Yes.
And that really leaves them holding a large tab.
Yes, and it is unwieldy and undoable, and it's causing a lot of people to go into foreclosure.
It's a real problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we have this state legislator said, what we need is a condominium bill of rights. And I understand what he's thinking. I don't think that what he's proposed here is addressing any of the problems. That's why I was calling it the Seinfeld bill, the bill about nothing. Because let's take a look at some of these points. He was first talking about that his bill would force developers to provide a warranty and a letter of credit for condo owners.
Yeah, so we started talking about, okay, what does that mean, force a warranty? What kind of warranty are we talking about? Yeah. Well, there are already building warranties. Yes. There are already building codes in place. So this is a little bit sketchy as to what he's talking about.
Yeah, when I think of warranty, what a warranty means is insurance, okay? And so someone pays for an insurance policy to take care of something in case. You know, the reason why FHA and lenders are covered is because there is a mortgage insurance premium that's paid for because people have put in so little down. Mm-hmm. And so if they fail, an insurance policy has been paid for, it kicks in so that the mortgage company is made whole. What we're talking about here is a warranty would be the same thing. But unfortunately, there in the insurance world, there's two different ideas about insurance, and people can still be stuck even though there is a warranty or an insurance.
Okay, all right.
And that's why I'm one to say this doesn't necessarily take care of it.
Answer that, yeah.
In insurance, there are two types of policies. One's called a claims made, and one is called an occurrence. And what happens is in an occurrence policy, what that means is that if a claim, a defect, or something is made during, and it is been identified as happening during the time that that policy was in effect, then that policy would pick it up.
Okay.
So if they had a policy in place from 2009 to 2010, and it was determined that in August of 2009, thus and such took place, an occurrence policy would mean that even though that insurance policy had been paid for and a year had passed, they've now found out about it, it would be taken care of.
So even if it was after the policy period, if it could be proven it happened during the policy term, then it would be covered.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, then there's something called claims made.
All right.
And what that means is that's an insurance policy that says that we're going to pick something up when the claim is made, when it is found out, and not necessarily when it took place. The problem that you have is that if you have someone who switches policies, and businesses will do that from time to time, you will find out that someone can go from a claims made to an occurrence, or an occurrence to a claims made, and now all of a sudden they would not have insurance to cover something that took place. So there's not any. What I'm saying is there's not any guarantee that there's going to be someone that is going to be there to say, "Yep, we're going to pick up the pieces for you."
In every possible scenario.
Yes.
There's no way to cover every possible scenario. You're saying.
If you're dealing with an occurrence policy, then you want to negotiate with your insurance agent and talk about having full prior acts covered, but you have to make an exception for that. If you're dealing with the claims made, you need to deal about getting the period extended so that you have coverage. You have to be careful, because just because you have an insurance policy doesn't mean you're going to have coverage.
Right.
And so I understand what he's saying here, but he's not necessarily giving any other additional insurance here for the folks if something takes place.
Okay.
Take a look at the other idea. He says, we're going to ensure in this bill more diligence by the municipality approving the development. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, it's non-specific. It's very non-specific.
How is the state of Wisconsin?
All four of these points are very non-specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's talking in broad terms here, but there is no vehicle, or detail here on how that's going to be accomplished. So
how much influence, or how much can the state control what a municipality does, for one thing? I think the municipality has certain autonomy, and that's why they have their own government.
Well, one of the things that you'll find when it comes to state codes versus city codes will always be much more specific than the state. The state has more of a general, broad.
But if you're talking about building codes, all cities are required to follow the state building code, and they cannot pass codes that are more restrictive than the state code. They can pass restrictive codes if it's but not more restrictive.
We'll talk to the mayor about that.
There was a lawsuit a few years ago.
I think they can be more restrictive.
They can end up being more restrictive in practice, but that's because they put other parameters around the situation that circumvents the state code, or that changes the situation somehow. But I guarantee you there was a lawsuit a few years ago where the Supreme Court in Minnesota said, no, this city cannot pass this code because it's more restrictive than the state.
Well, we'll talk.
I digress.
We'll talk to His Honor about this
and see what he knows. Yeah. Okay, all right.
But let's talk about one of these other items here.
I want to talk about the shortening the time before the developers must relinquish control.
Yeah.
Right now, if the most I think all condo documents say once a certain percentage of the homes are sold, then the developer must turn it over to the homeowners, turn over control.
The transition.
However, if that percentage is not met, then there's a time limit placed on it. And you mentioned in the state of Minnesota,
that's
it's 5 years. In the state of Wisconsin, it's 10 years. So, and this legislator thinks that is harming condominium associations. The truth of the matter is, it may be in some circumstances, but in other circumstances, the association may be better off if the developer has to maintain control for 10 years. Am I right?
Yes. It would be better for the association if the developer stayed in control longer, if the developer is around.
Of course.
Because if he's around and he has the wherewithal, yes, then he's going to help in taking care of the finances. But all you need to do in Wisconsin is look across the border to Minnesota that has a 5-year period,
right.
So half the time,
right.
And has that prevented, ask the question, has that prevented any less problems with developments? Have people living in these developments in Minnesota had any less problems than their counterparts in Wisconsin? I don't think so.
Well, but problems, that's a great big bag. There's some problems that are worse and some problems that are not. In this case, if only 20% of your community is sold and your developer is still around, you might hope your developer stays in control for 10 years because then they have to foot the bills for these empty units, correct?
I see that point, yes.
Right. On the other hand, if the association is anxious to get control of the budget and control of the finances because the circumstances are different, then this would help that association. I'm just saying it's too broad.
I don't think it will because too much time has elapsed. You're talking 10 years, 5 years. You're talking about a lot of time and a lot of expenses can pile up and can be just as awful for someone.
So you're saying there's no situation in which shortening that time period would be helpful to an association?
No, I didn't.
Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say no.
I was
whatsoever,
trying to say it
depends. But I'm just saying that is not any guarantee. That
there's no problem.
Yes,
that's right.
That if you just say that if we just shorten the period, that'll take care of it. That doesn't do it.
We agree.
Yes, and then of course you have the idea the modify state law regarding auditing of condominium records. What needs to be done differently in auditing? I bet you if we were to take a look at state statute and rights that homeowners have, they're probably quite a bit the same. In Minnesota, there are things already in place in terms of when an association needs to have things audited, reviewed. They're in their governing documents. There are requirements by law that the association, whether it's owned by the developer or turned over to the association, that they owe in terms of their disclosure and transparency to the average homeowner living there. So I don't know if just changing the law will do it.
In Minnesota, we have MCIOA. So we do have a condominium association 515B statute. However, every homeowners association I know of is a nonprofit corporation in the state of Minnesota. And there's plenty of law already on the books that regulates nonprofit corporations, including reporting requirements and audit requirements. So I think, again, this is very vague and very broad, and it does not illustrate how this is going to help.
It's like anything else. When something happens, we've seen it in an association. People say, "Let's just develop another rule," and just putting another rule doesn't do anything. There needs to be an enforcement piece, and you've got to ask yourself,
what are the unintended consequences? You talk about that all the time.
Anyway, just some issues here, some thoughts to consider. We wish the best for the folks in Wisconsin, but I don't know that this legislation, at the end of the day, will do anything any different than what the people already have. What do you think about that? You can let us know. Folks, we have a hotline. That number 651. I'm sorry. No, that's not. It's 952-224-2668. That's our hotline. You can leave your thoughts, questions, comments, and we're always happy to play those the next week here on the show. We need to take another quick break. When we come back, we will be talking with the mayor of Oak Grove and finding out how they can have taxes cut by over 18%. More about that after these messages.